Tulsi Gabbard. She's on a domestic terror watch list for simply speaking out about the dangers of a Kamala Harris presidency.
Refer to her as Kameleon, like Kameleon. She's literally just changing her colors like a chameleon to blend in with the narrative.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjakovic. And we are unapologetically outspoken.
Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. So I want to start out today's podcast with a story. And this is a compilation of some excerpts from an article in Time magazine that was released earlier today. And Stephanie, I don't know if you've seen it, but Kamala is on the cover, and the article is called The Reintroduction of Kamala Harris. Now, I think a better title would be The Rebranding of Kamala Harris, because that's exactly what's happening. But I want to read what the author wrote. So just a few portions of it. Quote, "The soundtrack suggested a Beyonce concert. The light-up bracelets evolved the Eras tour. And the exuberant crowd, more than 14,000 strong, lining up in the rain, resembled the early days of Barack Obama. Inside a Philadelphia arena on August 6th, Vice President Kamala Harris was greeted with the kind of reception a Democratic presidential candidate hasn't gotten in years. Fans packed into overflow spaces, waving homemade signs made of glitter and glue as drumlines roared. When Harris introduced her new running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the cheering lasted more than a minute. If you'd predicted this scene a month ago to anyone following the race, they never would have believed you. But Harris has pulled off the swiftest vibe shift in modern political history," end quote. Then later in the article, the author writes, quote, "Judging from the past few weeks, Harris's own party underestimated her. Maybe the crowded 2020 primary just wasn't the right race for Harris to showcase her talents. Maybe the vice presidency wasn't the right role. Suddenly, she seems matched to the moment, a former prosecutor running against a convicted felon, a defender of abortion rights running against the man who helped overturn Roe v. Wade, a next-generation Democrat running against a 78-year-old Republican. Perhaps above all, she has given Americans the one thing they overwhelmingly told pollsters they wanted, a credible alternative to the two unpopular old men who have held the job for the past 8 long years. Harris inherited Biden's campaign infrastructure, including more than 260 outposts across battleground states. In Nevada, the Harris campaign has 13 field offices to Trump's 1. In Pennsylvania, it has 36 coordinated offices to Trump's 3, according to a campaign memo. In the first 12 days of her campaign, Harris supporters placed 2.3 million phone calls and made 172,000 house visits. While battleground organizers are knocking on swing voters' doors, the campaign's digital strategy is designed partly around reaching the hard-to-reach voters and convincing them to choose between our candidates and the couch, said Deputy Campaign Manager Rob Flaherty. The avalanche of viral memes about Harris, the enthusiastic TikTok videos, and the massive Zoom calls of devoted supporters like Black women for Harris, white dudes for Harris, and Latino men for Harris have made this task easier. That's the kind of enthusiasm that money can't buy, Flaherty says. And I'm going to stop there, okay? Because I find this nauseating to read, but I think the author makes some really good points about the power of social media and media in general when it comes to Kamala's campaign. And the article mentioned Rob Flaherty, and we talked about him last Friday with the leaked Zoom calls from Biden's 2020 campaign and how the Democrats successfully used the power of psychographic micro-targeting to convince voters that Biden wasn't experiencing cognitive decline. And it's clear they're using that same strategy to convince voters that Kamala is an entirely different person than she's been the last 4 years. So, like, Stephanie, what is your opinion? Like, do you think that this campaign strategy is proving to be successful?
I mean, yeah, they've been successful in completely manufacturing this fake, excitement for Kamala and completely changing everything about her, her personality. Like, no one has thought anything up until she started running. Like, they've been hiding her away. There's been no excitement. So they have been successful with that. And I will say, I said it before that the Democrats are great when it comes to social media, and they're great when it comes to knocking on doors. And that's how they get all the ballot harvesting, and that's how they get all these elderly people to vote Democrat. You don't see Republicans doing that to the same degree. So I do think they have an edge when it comes to that. But again, like it's all manufactured, okay? And when you look outside of the mainstream media and leftist places like Time Magazine, the Kamala campaign is really embarrassing themselves left and right. So last week, we talked about the image posted outside of her campaign event that showed this crowd that ended up being AI generated. So you would think after being caught with that, they'd be more careful. But no, another image was released by her campaign that is clearly AI. And it's of Kamala and Tim Walz departing a plane. Now, people were saying this clearly is not Air Force One or Air Force Two because it's missing the markings and numbers that are usually on the plane. So that's the first strange thing in the photo that stands out. The second strange thing is that you can see the reflection of the people in the plane. And the problem is the reflection shows a handful of Secret Service agents, but the photo shows a crowd of people, a massive crowd of people standing outside the plane cheering on Kamala. These people are miraculously missing from the reflection on the plane, and there were three different reflections that you could see. The third thing that gives it away is the people have their phones out. And when you zoom in, their phones are showing an image, or should be showing an image of Kamala and Tim Walz, which is right in front of them. But one of the crowd members was apparently filming the cosmos because that's what was on his phone. It was like a picture of the universe. Other people had blank phones, anything but Kamala and Tim. So it sure sounds like an AI generated image once again. And Dinesh Suizar, I always say his name wrong, posted this on Instagram, and he said that he's being censored across social media platforms and threatened with a strike against his account for calling out the obvious. So he changed his caption to say that he's not claiming it's AI, but here are the facts so you can draw your own conclusions. And Tara, like what I was thinking about is since when do they let a crowd of people gather outside of Air Force Two? Like, I know they let reporters there occasionally, but typically it's those reporters that are traveling with them, like on the plane. And so I thought for security purposes, they don't just allow bystanders near tarmacs holding signs, cheering people on. I mean, doesn't that seem like a huge security risk?
Yeah, but her entire campaign is just been a web of lies and hypocrisy. Like last Friday, she did a rally with Waltz in Arizona, and her campaign sent out an email saying that only confirmed RSVPs would be admitted to the event. But Stephanie, guess what they used to determine who the confirmed RSVPs were?
No telling.
Hmm. Well, it was fucking government issued photo ID. Okay. So this was reported by Fox News. On the email, they specified that people on the RSVP list had to present matching government issued photo ID in order to be admitted to the venue, and invitations were non transferable. And this email was initially released by a local Arizona media channel. And you can go on X, multiple users have shared screenshots of the email commenting about the total hypocrisy of Kamala requiring ID to attend a campaign event. And that's not racist, but requiring ID to vote or to cross the border, that's racist. And then on Saturday, during a campaign rally in Las Vegas, Kamala copied directly from Trump's campaign strategy. So I want to play this clip from the Morning Wire because not only did they talk about what happened, but why this is critical.
Vice President Kamala Harris copied the Trump campaign over the weekend with a pledge to eliminate taxes on tips. Harris announced the proposal at a rally in Las Vegas 2 months after former President Trump promised the same reform at a rally in the same city.
Here to discuss the dueling proposals is Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce. So, Tim, what can you tell us about Harris's announcement?
She announced the pledge on Saturday during a rally at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Here's the moment.
And it is my promise to everyone here when I'm president, we will continue our fight for working families, including to raise the minimum wage taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
And here's Donald Trump making the same promise at a rally in Las Vegas back on June 9th.
When I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes on tips, people making tips.
The Las Vegas setting is important because Las Vegas has massive service and hospitality industries, and Nevada is a battleground state. Now, polls right now show that Trump has the edge. Real Clear Politics polling average for the state has Trump up over Harris by nearly 4 points. That's a decent lead, but Harris's move here to adopt Trump's anti-tip tax stance is clearly designed to try to cut into that advantage.
Right. Now, has Team Trump responded?
Yeah, shortly after Harris made the pledge public, Trump responded in a post on Truth Social. The former president said Harris stole the idea from him, but according to Trump, Harris, quote, won't do it. She just wants it for political purposes. He then said Harris has, quote, proposed the largest tax increase in history, a reference to the Biden-Harris administration's 2025 budget proposal. A note on that, Trump may have overstated his case. Now, Trump has previously cited figures from the Heritage Foundation to make that claim. But according to the Tax Foundation, the administration's proposed tax increase is big, but not the largest in U.S. history. It would rank as the 9th largest tax increase since 1940, although all but one of the tax increases ahead of the Biden-Harris proposal were enacted to fund war efforts in World War II, the Korean War, or the Vietnam War.
Now, why is Trump claiming that Harris won't follow through? Does he have any evidence for that?
Well, it would be a reversal of the Biden-Harris administration policy. The IRS and Treasury departments actually introduced a new tip reporting program last year called the Service Industry Tip Compliance Agreement Program. The stated goal of the program is to improve tip reporting compliance. It's currently just a voluntary program, but again, according to the IRS, the government would like to make it the, quote, sole tip reporting compliance program for employers in various service industries. So at the same time that Harris has promised to eliminate taxes on tips, the Biden-Harris administration is testing out a program designed to more strictly enforce those taxes.
Okay, so basically, she's pledging to do the exact opposite of what she stood for as VP for the past 4 years. And so Trump campaign political director James Blair, he posted on X, quote, now is a good time to remind everyone that hashtag copycat Kamala's administration rolled out a new enforcement program just last year to collect more taxes on tips. She could stop it now, but she won't because she's a dishonest fraud, end quote. And it's like everything that she's saying she's going to do if she's elected is all shit that she literally could have been doing for the past 4 years. And my question is like, how are liberals not seeing through the bullshit? And Donald Trump Jr. posted on X, I love this. He said, Harris Waltz 2024, stolen proposals and stolen valor. Because that's exactly what's happening. Like, don't you agree?
Yeah, this is so typical. And she's literally every talking point, which she doesn't have many. We don't even know what her policies are. But every time she does open her mouth, she says the exact opposite of what her actions have been for the past 4 years. So it's like, are you going to believe what she's telling you? Or are you going to believe what you're seeing with your own eyes on the actions or non-action she's taken over the past 4 years? It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And so now I want to play this clip that Jesse Waters aired from Kamala's campaign speeches in Wisconsin and Michigan last week, because it shows how she's clearly using the same fucking script. And the video is like a side by side of like 2 different speeches, and you'll understand.
It is so good to be back in Michigan. Listen, let me tell you, I'm clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. And listen, I am clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. I took on perpetrators of all kinds and had a summer job at McDonald's. So hear me when I say, hear me, Detroit, when I say, I'm Donald Trump's type. Trump's tight. What are you ready to for it? To for it.
It might have been hard to hear that last part. I swear every time we play a clip where people are cheering in the background, you just can't hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
But did you hear part of it?
Up until like the McDonald's summer job or whatever.
She was basically just repeating the exact same speech during like both of these campaign visits. Like there is zero originality and she can't go off script.
Well, yeah, just like Biden. That's what people need to understand. You're getting the same exact thing as Biden, but maybe a little more extreme to the left. Because, yeah, she can't read unless she has a teleprompter or has practiced a script. So I cannot wait to see her debate Trump because that's going to be really telling. And as we've said over the past couple of weeks, her campaign is paying influencers a lot of money to promote her on social media. But one influencer accidentally talked shit about her rally, like thinking it was Trump's rally. It's freaking hilarious. So I'm going to play a clip from the older millennial. This is like my favorite guy on TikTok, and he explains it perfectly.
Be real, it's a lot of fun owning liberals. But if I'm being honest, it's way more fun when they own themselves. Take, for example, William Legate. William here is a paid liberal influencer for the Kamala Harris campaign. And he put out this tweet. Breaking. Trump has ordered his team to literally cover up entire levels of venues he's unable to fill with black cloths to make it appear as if there aren't thousands of empty seats. And let me tell you, he's exactly right. Huge chunks of this venue were covered up with these black cloths in order to make it seem like you were filling up the entire venue. However, the problem was that was a Harris Walz rally. He didn't take the time to check the video. He just saw the picture and ran with it. Like you can see here that this is the Desert Diamond Casino. And here's those big black cloths. Yeah, Desert Diamond Casino. Big black cloths. Harris Walz. He literally posted a screenshot of a Kamala Harris rally and was talking shit about it. And the worst part is the Harris campaign is paying this dude. This dude is getting paid tens of thousands of dollars to post this shit. I mean, don't get me wrong. He deleted the tweet, but you can't take that back.
So it just goes to show, like, they just make shit up. But it was this rally that Kamala is doing. And yeah, like huge areas of the venue are covered up to make it look, like there's not seats there or something. I don't know. But they keep trying to make it seem like she draws the same crowd as Trump. And everyone knows that's bullshit. Just like they told Biden, you're never going to win on crowds because Trump can draw a crowd. Everyone knows it.
But I think this goes to show that Kamala's campaign is a clear example of the power of media propaganda, like everything they're telling us. I mean, this woman has been in office as the VP for the past 4 years, and she hasn't done a fucking thing. Like, how many times can we say that? Her role as vice president was basically dismissed by everyone, including liberals, as being a complete fucking joke. And yet all of a sudden, she's being praised as the savior of democracy. And on top of that, she's portraying herself like she has no responsibility for or involvement in any of the failed policies from this administration, her administration, okay? Like it was never the Biden-Harris admin, right? Like she was never responsible for the border. And suddenly we're supposed to believe in the scripted speeches that she's feeding the American people that make her sound like she's not the far left progressive lunatic that she truly is. We've been pointing out for the past couple weeks how her history is being erased on the internet. Just yesterday, the New York Post reported that GovTrack, which is a watchdog site that rated Kamala as the most liberal member of the Senate back in 2019, they deleted their article. And if you look for it now, the internet response is just page not found. And I don't know if the New York Post came up with this nickname or if it was someone else, but in the article, they refer to her as Kameleon, like Kameleon, which is exactly what's happening.
I love that nickname. Okay. Like that might even be better than Cackles Kamala. Chameleon. Yeah. She's a freaking chameleon.
Yes, she's literally just changing her colors like a chameleon to blend in with the narrative that they want us to believe. And it's like, are people stupid enough to ignore the blatant facts and believe that she's actually going to be tough on border policies when she's been complicit in allowing millions of illegals and hundreds of confirmed terrorists into the country for the past 4 years? Like, are they going to believe that she's going to be tough on crime when her history clearly shows the opposite, that she's going to focus on lowering inflation, even though the Biden-Harris admin policies are the reason we have such high inflation in the first place. Because this is all the shit she's saying in her campaign rallies. And I don't know if you saw this, Stephanie, but I was reading in the news, KNEWZ. They reported there was an illegal migrant gang member from Venezuela named Daniel Hernandez Martinez. He was released into the US last year with this open border policy. And in the last 6 months, he's committed at least 22 crimes in New York, including violent crimes of assault and use of a deadly weapon. And is he facing deportation? Nope. Thanks to the Biden-Harris admin open border and soft on crime policies. And did you know that the nation's very first iconic Starbucks in Seattle, Washington closed last week? And this happened very quietly. Have you ever been there, Stephanie?
No, but isn't that like the original, like where Starbucks is from? Or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It is one of the most visited places in the country. And it's August. It's the height of tourist season. And they just abruptly closed the store. They didn't even tell employees. Like, employees showed up and there was like black curtains and it was shuttered. Why did they close the store? Well, the news isn't giving any information on it. Starbucks has declined to comment on why they closed the most iconic location that they have in the world. But there's a local realtor who covered this on his podcast called News for Reasonable People. And he played a local news clip that the news reporter did some research and found out that just this year alone, Starbucks employees at this location made 255 calls to 911 already. Like
Oh my
255
God.
calls. Yeah,
I mean, just think about that. That's almost daily. I mean,
correct.
pretty much more times than not, you're going to be calling when you're on your shift. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Right, exactly. And why? Because crime in Seattle is through the fucking roof. And the main reason for that is the Biden-Harris admin's lack of crime enforcement policies and the whole defund the police movement and all the other shit that takes place in these liberal cities. And so it's like Kamala is not the centrist Democrat that the media is suddenly portraying her to be. There is a reason that it's been almost a month and she hasn't done one single press conference. Because just like with Biden, they are desperately afraid that she's going to go off script. And the only time that she has even taken questions from the press since becoming the Democrat candidate was a 2-minute window last week. And we talked about this on Friday, I think, where she was at the airport after one of her campaign rallies and they were questioning her about why she hasn't given a press conference yet. And that's when she made that ridiculous comment about how she was going to confer with her team and try to get an interview scheduled before the end of the month. But it's like, does it matter? Like, is it going to make any difference? This campaign strategy for her, it has nothing to do with what's best for America. It's about telling the American people what they want to hear. And my question is it working? Like, I am legitimately afraid that she is going to win. And I played that clip earlier from the Morning Wire. And during that same episode, they were talking about how a poll from the Financial Times over the weekend is showing that Kamala is ahead by 1 point on the question, which candidate do voters trust more to handle the economy? Kamala is ahead of Trump on which candidate voters trust to handle the economy. Like, that blows my fucking mind. And I know that polls aren't always an accurate reflection of voter beliefs, but you cannot deny the persuasive power of the media. And also, I'm sorry, but the idiocy of the American public to trust that the Democrats are going to do anything for them when they haven't done anything for them ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so much I want to say, like with all that you just gave. Okay. So first of all, I saw that poll and I just want to talk about polls for 1 second because I feel like I learned a lot this weekend just listening to different like pollsters, like the guy from, I think he's from Signal Polling, which is like one of the only polls that isn't super left. But anyways, in that poll where she was like 1 point ahead on who do you trust more to handle the economy, another question in that poll was who do you think will, it was some, I don't remember the exact question, but something like who do you think will benefit you the most with your personal finances? And for that, it was Trump. So it's like, okay, well, that's confusing. Why are they saying one over the other? But the other thing was the guy from Signal, he was explaining how a lot of these polls are set up in places like New York, LA. And so it's very like blue cities. And so he was saying when you look at the polls, if you see that Kamala is like even with Trump or just a little bit ahead, he's like, that's actually a really good sign because she should be way far ahead. Because if she's even, then that means that in the most liberal blue cities, they're like turning more towards Trump than they did in the past. And that's why like all the polling showed that Hillary was going to win over Trump and like all these different things. But that's why I don't trust polls. Like it's just you never know what you're going to get. But again, like they are very good at manufacturing celebrity. I do want to give some positives though about the Trump campaign because I feel like this is where they have an advantage over traditional Republicans. So they're getting the Bitcoin crowd, which is mostly young men and women, but a lot of young men, and the streaming crowd, which these are like the Gen Zers. These are like the kids fresh out of high school. This is going to be their first time voting. So Trump did a live stream with this guy, Aiden Ross. I'm too old to know who the hell this kid is, but he's incredibly popular on a streaming platform I've never even heard of because I'm like not Gen Z. But apparently when he did this live stream, they got 100 million views so far. Just think about that for a second. 100 million views. That is more than the 81 million votes Joe Biden got. But it's mostly young Gen Zers tuning in. And this is why the leftist mainstream media is like totally bashing that stream. And they're trying to say, because this kid, Aiden Ross, he gives Trump one of those brand new cyber trucks. And like, so they're trying to say, like, oh, this violates campaign finance laws. And they're totally attacking it because they're scared that a young kid can get 100 million people tuning into his streaming platform where CNN and MSNBC can barely get like a million. So, I do think the Trump campaign can do a lot more when it comes to influencers and social media, but I feel like they are making headway with some of these like younger crowds. And then, oh, and then the other thing. So you were talking about how like they're just trying to ignore like everything in Kamala's past. And I have been seeing clips of these rallies where she's literally going on stage and saying, the cost of gas is too high. The cost of groceries are too high. The border needs to be secured and we know how to do it. And I'm going to do it day one. And that's actually biting her in the ass because now on places like TikTok, you have a bunch of young women who were like open to her. They're like, oh, like a woman voter, I'm going to see what she has to say. And then they're going on TikTok and they're like, bitch, where have you been the last 4 years? Why are you waiting until day one? Do it now. So it's like actually opening the eyes of people that might have actually voted for her because they're kind of like, wait, this doesn't make sense. And they're not like falling for the mainstream narrative. So there's just so much at play. It's like, oh my gosh, we could talk all freaking day about this.
Yeah.
I have to bring up something else though, that you know how I get when it comes to children, because I feel like the left, there is some kind of perversion. I've said it before, like I want to be very outspoken about it because I feel like if there's one thing that everyone should agree on, it's to fucking leave kids alone. So Kamala's VP pick, Tim Walz. I keep wanting to say Waltz, but I think it's Walz, right?
Oh, I thought it was Waltz too.
I don't know. Whatever. I'll say whatever. I'll just say Tim.
We
need to come up with a nickname. They're calling him Tampon Tim. I think you can come up with something better though.
The
tampons in
the
boys'
boys' room. But I was gonna say, like, we fuck up names so often that I don't think our listeners expect much of us at this point.
Yeah, true. It is what it is. You get what you get. So he's getting even more negative publicity now over something called the Take Pride Act. So Waltz signed this in 2023, where he removed a line from Minnesota's human rights laws saying pedophilia could not be considered a sexual orientation. I'm going to say that again. Pedophilia cannot be considered a sexual orientation, right? Well, he removed that. He removed that from the Minnesota's human rights law. So all these articles are popping up that are fact checking this, saying that's false, that's false. But of course, as always, when you read the article, it turns out he did exactly that. He removed the line about how pedophiles cannot be considered a sexual orientation. So one can infer that he thinks pedophilia can in fact be a sexual orientation. Otherwise, why would you remove that? And I've been saying for a long time now how I truly deeply believe that the LGBTQ community has been hijacked by pedophiles because they keep including our children in everything. There is a perversion there that was not there just a few years ago. So the article can go ahead and slap a fact check sticker on it because they say that, well, even though he removed that line from the Minnesota human rights law, it's still illegal in Minnesota to sexually abuse children. I mean, I would fucking hope so. Like the fact that they have to come out and like clarify that tells you there's a problem here. Okay. So according to this AFP article, quote, the Take Pride Act removed harmful language from Minnesota statutes, end quote. I'm sorry, but the language we use with pedophiles isn't what's harmful. Pedophiles are harmful. So if you're trying to be inclusive of pedophiles, to me, like that's more harmful than anything. Why is saying pedophile harmful? Like that is what they are. That's a nice word compared to what these monsters are. But this is the kind of extreme shit that Tim Walz supports. And here's an example of how in Minnesota, under Tim Walz's leadership, this is how they treat pedophiles. There is a man named Mohammed Bakari Shea, and he was convicted of raping 2 girls aged 4 and 8 multiple times. And you want to know what his punishment was, Tara? He was sentenced to 180 days in a local jail. But guess what? He only has to serve 176 via work release or something called sentence to serve, which is a community project option for offenders who are considered nonviolent. I'm sorry, what? Like, since when is raping little girls considered a nonviolent offense? And it's just like, can you freaking imagine how the family of these girls must feel knowing that this monster, their child's predator, is going to be out in 6 months? He's probably out already on work release or doing community service. It's so freaking unreal, but this is how extreme this guy is.
Yeah, this is what happens when you try to normalize legitimate criminal fucking behavior and try to make it sound nice by calling it minor attracted persons instead of pedophiles and giving sentences like this. Like, this is what the fucking left is supporting.
Right. And it's not just
insane.
pedophilia. They're supporting child trafficking through the open borders. They're supporting gender surgeries and basically kidnapping your children if they flee to Minnesota to have their genitals mutilated or cut off. Like it's sick and it's twisted. And the fact that like the news isn't calling this out is telling me everything I need to know. I mean, this is just disgusting. But completely switching gears for a second, because this was a big deal, but I really didn't see many people talking about it. But Tara, did you hear that Trump's plane had to make an emergency landing in Montana?
Yeah.
Okay, like the second I heard this, it was like, I immediately was like, something's up, something suspicious is happening. So it was on the way to his Bozeman rally where they made an emergency stop in Billings, Montana, and it was due to mechanical issues. I have not seen many articles at all talking about this, so I don't know exactly what the mechanical issues were, but it was enough to make an emergency stop. And this was in a Fox News article. And so from there, they did like a sweep of the airport and they got a private plane that he was able to take to his rally. So I just want to go conspiracy mode for a minute because, like I said, my ears perked up when I heard this. And there is a new conspiracy now going around social media, and it actually makes a lot of sense. So, all right, you know how like all year there's been all sorts of mechanical and safety incidents with Boeing to the point where they're being sued, the CEO resigned, They're under congressional scrutiny. They had to do that congressional hearing. Not to mention they've had like 3 whistleblowers turn up dead now. So the conspiracy going around is, what if all of that with Boeing over the past year or so was set up so that when Trump's plane, which is a Boeing, has a mechanical issue and crashes, it won't really look suspicious because Boeing has had so many issues and so many crashes and emergency landings that no one would think anything of it. Not to mention, after the failed assassination attempt, a bunch of people were saying they're going to try to mess with his plane. I think Tucker Carlson said it, but like all over social media, everyone's like, they're going to blow up his plane or something. And a year ago, like if I would have heard this, I would have laughed and been like, come on, you guys, this is a little extreme. But now I absolutely think it's plausible. I mean, immediately that's what I thought. Like someone must have messed with his plane. Like, what do you think?
I think anything is plausible at this point because it's very clear the elites are going to do whatever they have to do to try and get rid of him. So attempting to manufacture a plain, quote, accident wouldn't surprise me at all. And like we always talk about, what do they do before they put something in play? The conditioning, whether it's conditioning us for years or months or weeks, whatever it is, there's always conditioning beforehand. So, I can
Well,
see this
they
could be.
say like if they keep us divided, that's how they keep power, right? They want us like fighting each other. And everyone said, Trump was supposed to die that day. He was supposed to be shot in the head. That would have caused, I mean, an uprising. I mean, there definitely would have been division. It would have been chaos. So I want to talk about the chaos in the UK for a second and how this all ties into free speech. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we can look to Europe to kind of see where we're headed, because Europe has gone far left years before we did. And so I really feel like that's an indicator of where we're headed. All right. So here in the United States, we have the First Amendment right, which is freedom of speech. And, in UK, they don't have the same rights that we have. So they're doing these protests where citizens are fed up with the open border and taking to the streets and protesting. And one man, his name is Jordan Parler, a young guy in his 20s. He's been very vocal about this on social media. He was just sentenced to jail for 15 weeks because his social media was causing quote unquote division. So he's being jailed for a social media post. Another UK man was sentenced to 24 months in jail for selling anti-immigration stickers. And Tara, I heard this and I was like, holy shit, like we have stickers. The Crown Prosecution Service posted on X, kind of like threatening people. They said, quote, think before you post. Content that incites violence or hatred isn't just harmful, it can be illegal. The CPS takes online violence seriously and will prosecute when the legal test is met. Remind those close to you to share responsibly or face the consequences, end quote. And I mean, literally, like a guy for selling stickers and another guy for posting, they are going to jail. Well, I want to play a clip from another UK man who posted a video of him getting arrested over a Facebook post. So listen to this.
Suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network.
What?
127 Communications Act. Okay, so you do not have to say that may harm or offence if you mention one question subject to later on court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand that?
So I'm actually being arrested.
You're going to be arrested, okay?
Right.
So you get to the police station.
Right.
Okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page. Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, to the Facebook crime, is it?
Okay.
Right.
So we need to ask you some questions about that.
Right.
Have you got anything in your pockets?
I got my keys. No, it's made it. I think keys.
So anyone who's been arrested, we can search them on Section 32 and basically like that.
Right.
That's the dangerous item.
I mean, you say I was going to be arrested under somewhat information. I'm going to be arrested for posting on Facebook.
Some comments that are offensive, obscene, and people have made a complaint about that, and it's transferred.
Can you tell me what this comment was?
Okay, well, we'll do that when we interview.
Okay, so I know that was probably hard to hear, but she's saying you made Facebook comments. So I don't even know if he posted or just commented on a post, but you made Facebook comments that are offensive or obscene. So now you can get arrested for being offensive, like offending someone. Like, how insane is that? And then I don't know if you could hear the other police officer was saying, since we're arresting you, we're allowed to search you. And I don't know if they meant search the house or just search him, but they're like putting their gloves on to search this guy. I mean, that is really scary. And again, this is in the UK, but I mean, look at what they're trying to do here to our freedom of speech. This is terrifying.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, if you guys don't think this is coming to the United States, if fucking Harris Waltz gets into office, like, think again. And in terms of like the UK, I want to talk about this a little bit because every article that I've seen about the riots in the UK is referring to them as like these far right wing extremists, domestic terrorists, white nationalists, white supremacists. And the media is blaming the internet for the spread of misinformation and disinformation and conspiracy theories. And that, social media platforms need to be doing more to restrict the spread of harmful information. And it's like setting the stage for the censorship that's to come, right? Even what you just talked about. And I was reading this article in a publication called The Conversation, and it was talking about how there's a surprising number of middle-aged men in like their 40s and 50s involved in the protests. Like, I didn't see that clip you played, Stephanie, but was he an older guy?
I couldn't see him because he was
Okay.
filming the cops.
Oh,
He
gotcha.
sounded a
He
little bit
sounded.
older.
He sounded older. But
Mhm.
anyway, the article was blaming what they're referring to as, quote, toxic generational idiosyncrasy, end quote, which is described as a group of people too old to be digital natives who taught themselves how to use the internet in adulthood and failed to emerge with the skills needed to navigate the fake news environment. These same people also happen to be more influential in their communities than younger, more internet savvy generations. So I guess the problem is middle-aged men who aren't internet savvy. And then the article also blamed what they're calling the unspoken problem of English nationalism in British politics. And like, I am sorry, but I am so fucking sick of the narrative that nationalism and populism are racism. It is not fucking racist to believe in the concept of nationalism and wanting to preserve and prioritize your country's culture, their traditions, and your national identity. Like, I am clearly not anti immigration. My family immigrated here, but I am anti illegal immigration. And I thought the whole purpose of immigration was to fucking assimilate. Like, isn't that what it's about? Like, this is something that completely baffles me. If you move to another country, you should want to assimilate into their culture, right? Like, not expect your culture to be catered to. But then that's the whole point of this global agenda, to get rid of national identity and create this population of people who have nothing to stand for, no history or culture to fight to protect. And so, what's one of the best tools for control? The desired narrative on social media, which is exactly what's been happening in the UK with the emphasis on the protests and the riots being fueled by hate. And so, as a result of what's been going on there for the last 2 weeks, the UK Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, she announced on Saturday that schools are now going to be changing their curriculum to teach children how to spot extremist content online. And specifically, she said, quote, it's more important than ever that we give young people the knowledge and skills to be able to challenge what they see online. That's why our curriculum review will develop plans to embed critical skills in lessons to arm our children against the disinformation, fake news, and putrid conspiracy theories awash on social media, end quote. So, in theory, I think this is a great idea. But in practice, that depends on what's being considered disinformation and conspiracy theories. Because if what's happening in the UK is anything like what's considered disinformation or misinformation or conspiracy theories in the United States, then I don't have much faith in the government to teach kids discernment.
No, I feel like they're teaching them, instead of trusting your own eyes and using common sense, you just trust whatever the media is telling you, and that's it. And you don't think for yourself. That's horrible.
Exactly. And while I do not in any way condone the riots, the violence against minorities, setting shit on fire, like I literally don't condone any of that, but I do understand the anger and frustration behind the reasons why people are fed up and taking to the streets. And I also want to point out, I was reading an article in The Guardian over the weekend, and it was saying like only 7% of British people say they support the riots. And I've read several other articles talking about how there are these anti-racist groups with thousands of people who've all come together to like successfully quash the rioters, and they're making it out to be like it's such a small minority of British people who have this sentiment against immigration. But when I dug deeper and I checked out, there was an actual YouGov poll that was released on August 6th, and it gives a broader picture of the overall feelings in Britain about mass immigration. And so the polls, yes, it indicates that only 7% of Britons are supporting violence and unrest. But it also said that 1 in 3 Britons support the protests, and 6 out of 10 say they have a great deal or a fair amount of sympathy for the views of those who are peacefully protesting. And it's like, regardless of the polls, the bottom line fact is like, unchecked illegal immigration is a fucking problem in multiple countries right now. And this is what happens when people feel cast aside and neglected by their own government in favor of illegal migrants. We have seen it all throughout the world, and we are seeing it play out in real time in the UK. And I honestly think this is what is coming to America.
Yeah. And, that poll is interesting because what the media isn't showing is, they keep saying these extreme right protesters, but what they're not showing, but you can see on TikTok, are Muslims taking over the streets. I mean, literally with knives going after protesters. So it's like people could be looking at that too, as like, oh my God, this needs to stop. It's really scary. So it's just interesting, but also like I'd be kind of afraid to participate in polls and post my feelings on social media because they're arresting people. Like it's insane. Um, but yeah, like the UK, it looks like they're seeing the same double standard the right is experiencing here in the United States. It's like migrants and left-wing extremists can riot, they can even vandalize, they can commit crimes, and nothing happens. But when the right peacefully protests, they're arrested. Like it's crazy. Now, I do want to play something that is happening here that's pretty scary and sounds a lot like what's going on in the UK. So this is a clip of Tulsi Gabbard on Laura Ingraham explaining how she is now considered a potential domestic terrorist. She's on a domestic terror watch list for simply speaking out about the dangers of a Kamala Harris presidency. Listen to this.
Laura, this is a clear act of political retaliation. There's no other way to put it. You laid out the sequence of events the very next day after my conversation with you on the air, warning the American people about how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency would be. I was placed on this domestic terror watch list, which is called the Quiet Skies list under the Department of Homeland Security. The clear pain and real visceral hurt that comes from this is, as you mentioned, like many Americans, I enlisted because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11 to go after the Islamist terrorists who attacked us on that day, and to now have my own government now turn around and put me on a domestic terror watch list. It hits to the core and is the ultimate sense of betrayal. But we look at why they are doing this. It has a chilling effect. It sends a warning both to me and to anyone else who even thinks about daring to criticize our own government, which is a guaranteed protected right under the First Amendment. Yeah. That we will be subject to a violation of our Fourth Amendment right to privacy through this kind of surveillance. And that's the biggest stress that's been caused by this entire situation, Laura, is now forever. I will always be looking over my shoulder, wondering if and how our government in any of these different agencies is surveilling me, watching me. Are they reading my text messages? Are they listening to my phone calls?
Yeah, I was going to say yes, and yes. That's what I would guess, at least. Now, in a letter from whistleblower attorney Tristan Levitt, He writes that the special mission coverage in Ms. Gabbard's case reportedly involves 2 explosive detection canine teams, 1 transportation security analyst and explosives, 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals on every flight Ms. Gabbard boards.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not laughing, Tulsi, because this is literally like the Soviet Union, China today, North Korea, any totalitarian regime. But Donald Trump's the totalitarian, right? He's the dictator in waiting. Okay.
Yeah, this is just, and this is what we know about, and we know about it because of these brave whistleblowers from the Air Marshal Service who are coming forward. What I'm questioning is, what are the things that are happening in our government that I don't know about? How long have they been surveilling me? This is just a recent occurrence. I would not be surprised to know that there are other government agencies who are also being weaponized against political opponents, those who dare to challenge this regime, the Biden-Harris administration. And that's really what it comes down to, and why they have to be stopped. We are guaranteed the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I cannot be free. And you pointed to this. Yes, exactly.
So this is absolutely absurd. It's super scary. I mean, clearly they don't think that Tulsi Gabbard is a terrorist. They're doing it to scare other people from speaking out, because literally all she's been doing is going on podcasts and speaking the truth, like talking about what everyone else is talking about. And like she said, it's really scary because they're doing this to American citizens. Meanwhile, Biden and Kamala are letting terrorists walk right into our country, even stopping them and letting them go. That happened recently as well. But American citizens are going on this terrorist watch list. And obviously, she's a public figure, so whistleblowers came forward. But how many other people, how many average citizens are being surveilled? I mean, for all I know, we are.
Oh, I would not be surprised if we were on some kind of watch list. But the amount of resources that they have assigned to her that was talked about on that clip, like, we have legitimate terrorists in our country. We have at least, what, 100 known? 100
I think they're
known.
putting more resources on her than they did at the Trump rally where he was almost assassinated.
Yeah, no shit.
God.
It's just so fucking backwards. And like, meanwhile, what the fuck is going on with Biden? Like, where has Biden been, right? Because technically he's still the president. And so, speaking of like dangerous presidencies, did you see that he finally gave an interview with CBS News yesterday where he talked about why he dropped out? Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I never thought I would feel sorry for him, but I almost do. And so I want to play this clip because it's just sad. If it'll play.
Well, we had showed that it was a neck and neck race, would have been down the wire. But what happened was a number of my Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate thought that I was going to hurt them in the races. And I was concerned if I stayed in the race, that would be the topic. You'd be interviewing about why did Nancy Pelosi say, why did so? And I thought it'd be a real distraction, number one. Number two, when I ran the first time, I thought of myself as being a transition president. I can't even say how old I am. It's hard for me to get out of my mouth. And but things got moving so quickly, it didn't happen. And the combination was that I thought it was a critical issue for me still, is not a joke, maintaining this democracy.
Doesn't that just sound sad to you?
It sounds sad, but again, like, it sounds like a freaking coup. It sounds like he wanted to stay in and he was pushed out by his own party. Like, how is that okay? I just don't understand how they're getting away with this.
No, and that's why, like, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that he is still the president. Like, the left dropped him like a hot potato, right? Even Pelosi is saying that she hasn't spoken to him since he withdrew a few weeks ago. But yet nobody from the left is questioning his ability to run the country for the next 5 months. Like, it's not even an issue on the table. all that matters is putting 100% effort into creating false narratives about Kamala being the new savior for democracy. And I was talking with my best friend Erin about this yesterday. So, hi, Erin, because I know you're listening. But we were talking about like how easily everyone in this country and really around the world is like so distracted by what we're being fed by the media. And I'm talking about everyone, left, right, center media, like even podcasts like ours. And she asked me if I thought Trump was going to win. And I said, like, I honestly don't think so. Like, do I think legitimately he's going to win? Yes. But I believe it will be a stolen election. And we've talked about this before, how through this social media or through these media campaigns of promoting Kamala is how they're going to get away with stealing the election. But it's like you just said, the left is literally in the midst of pulling off the biggest coup in American history. They successfully put a candidate in place who wasn't elected by the people, like not one single vote. And we are seeing right before our very eyes how the power of the media can change the public's perception about someone who just a few weeks ago was considered a joke, even to a lot of people in the Democrat Party. And it's just insane to me how many people in our country seem to be totally okay with the fact that what the left is doing completely defies our Constitution. And I'm watching the narrative shift over the past few weeks with just this sense of total disbelief because it's something I never thought I'd see. But the elites are accomplishing the exact narrative that they want because they have all of us focused on all of this insane shit. And it's all just a distraction. Like you've got the left focused on making Trump out to be the next Hitler. You've got the right trying to prove Kamala's an extreme far left progressive. And the bottom line, like when I was thinking about this, Stephanie, it's like what you always say. I feel like this is just one big theater performance that's been carefully orchestrated and calculated and manipulated. And everyone, including us, we're all like playing our parts.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with you. Like, I think he will legitimately win, but they will do something. Like there will be something that happens because they will stop at nothing to make sure he does not get, that Trump doesn't get in the White House. Can I just put like a positive spin real quick? Because again, like I was diving into this like polling guy over the weekend and it did give me a little bit of hope. Again, like I think there's going to be a lot of shady things at play, but he said a couple of things. The first thing he said was, okay, even with all this excitement that we're seeing with Kamala, those people are like the never Trumpers, right? And he's like, at this point, you're not going to convince someone that hated Trump to vote for Trump. So it's basically you're voting for Trump or you're not voting for Trump. Like there's not that many people that are going to like vote just because of Kamala. And what he was saying is especially after this honeymoon wears off, which it's going to start to, and then that's when they're going to do the debate. And so as a pollster, he's saying, I tell my clients, debates can only hurt you. And he said, but here's the thing with Trump, if Trump goes in there and says something stupid or off the wall, it's like no big deal. No one's going to think twice about it because that's Trump. He says crazy shit all the time. We kind of expect it. But if Kamala slips up, since we really don't hear her outside of a script, if she slips up on one thing, it's going to be alarming. Like it's going to, and again, he pointed out how she has not spoken without a teleprompter or a script at all so far. And during her vice presidency, every time she did, she would embarrass the administration and they would hide her away. So he was like, really, I think everyone should just realize this honeymoon's going to end and the debate is probably going to be just as telling as the debate was between Biden and Trump. If she even shows, but I could see them pulling some, nonsense as to why they're not going to do it. And then one other thing I wanted to talk about that just recently came up. Okay, so pretty much all these blue cities are the ones that are being flooded with migrants. We saw in New York when he did the Bronx rally, people were like fed up with the whole open border. Chicago now is like a big one where people are protesting. People are pissed about all these migrants that are coming into the city and getting all the resources. So there's all these flyers going around that say crash the party. And they're trying to get people to go and crash the Democrat National Convention. But then people on the right are warning, they're like, this is a setup. They are going to do something at the DNC and blame it on Republicans to make it seem like we're the bad guys. So I feel like something could potentially happen with the DNC, but just based on like these flyers going around.
I have to say, I love how you always try to put a positive spin on things because we need that. And I am always the one being super negative. But
I'm negative a lot too. I just, for my own like sanity, I got to do it.
Yeah. But it's like you just mentioned, the DNC isn't until next week, right? And we still, who knows what's going to happen there, and who knows what's going to happen with these debates. And Trump has said what he'll do 3 different debates. He gave like three different, even I think it was 3 different news outlets, and Kamala's only agreed to one. And she was asked, I think this weekend, if she was going to do the other debates, and she just walked away from the camera and like didn't even answer. So I hope her true colors show in this debate. I hope her true colors show like in some incident at the DNC. Like the American public needs to see the real fucking Kamala.
Yep.
So anyway, I want to end this episode on something that I thought was just fucking stupid. And so this has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about. But my husband sent me this ridiculous story, and it pains me to say that this comes out of El Paso, Texas. And I want to know your opinion because you have school-age children. So the school year started today, right? And there's a middle school in El Paso called the Charles Middle School. And the principal, Nick DeSantis, announced a new dress code policy. This is a public school, so they don't have uniforms, but it's a new dress code policy that prohibits students from wearing all Black clothing. And the reason being given is because Black attire is associated with, quote, depression and mental health issues and or criminality, end quote. Like, is it just me, or do you find this asinine?
Yeah, no, it's totally asinine, and this is what's so crazy is these stupid dress codes. It's like, okay, if you want to say no crop tops, fine, but you're going to ban a color? Like, give me a freaking break. Come on. It's so ridiculous.
Wearing a color is going to impact a kid's depression? Like, I don't understand.
I'm sure there's going to be parents going to that school board meeting. Like, what the heck,
Ugh,
And then what about the people, too, that like don't the Muslim students like have to wear black or something, or the black thing on their head, the hijab?
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I don't know.
I love
But
the color
that's,
black.
like-
I wear all black all the
Me
time. I'm not
too.
depressed.
Right.
I don't have
Right.
mental health
Why
issues.
like make black clothing out to be this like thing that it's not? It kind of reminds me like when we were kids and it was like after Columbine, they did that. It was like no black leather jackets and like stuff like that. And it was like totally a style that they were banning. It's like, okay, the style is not what's causing this. Like there's something else going on here and it has nothing to do with clothing. Okay.
Yeah. I just had to mention that because I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, it absolutely is. All right. Well, we'll keep everyone posted on the latest that's unfolding because, gosh, there's always something with Kamala. I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks for tuning in.